Hello guys, so welcome to my channel. So in this video I will be explaining about the executor framework and the executor service. So this is one of the very important concepts in the multi-threading. So let's begin with this executor framework. So first of all we need to understand why we need this executor framework. So suppose you create a thread for every task. So you can see the code snippet. So what I am doing is I am running the for loop for 1000 times, and in every time I am creating the new thread. Okay, and the task is printing the task, and I am calling start method so that it will create a new thread for every task. So what happens in this case is the problem that we can face, it will create 1000 threads, and also high memory usage because creating threads is expensive. It involves memory usage and the CPU utilization, and also the CPU spends more time switching between the threads because it has to switch the threads, right? If one thread is executing, it has to give chance for the other threads, and also poor performance. So actually what is the problem we are facing is, if we are creating a thread for each and every task, then we will be facing these many problems. And what is the solution for this thing is, we can reuse the threads instead of creating new ones for each and every task. That is where we will use the concept of thread pool. So let's now understand what is thread pool. So just I'll give you the definition. What is a pool? Pool means like swimming pool. What the swimming pool? It contains water, like people used to swim in the swimming pool. In the same way, thread pool means there will be threads. So it's a collection of reusable threads, what we can say. And there is something called as executor. So what is executor? Actually, executor is a basic interface for executing the task. So I will quickly show you some example. So for example, you can see this program. So what I am doing is I am using executors dot new fixed thread pool. So I'll explain all these thread pools later. You just see this line, 8th 10th line. I am returning the executor, and I am calling the executor dot execute method, and this is the task I am running. Okay. So actually, in real time, we won't use the executor directly. We will be using executor service. So now let's understand what is executor service. And I have put 5 stars over here because this concept is very much important. So we have a thread pool, right? And we need someone to manage that thread pool. So that is nothing but executor service. So executor service is an interface that manages the pool of threads. And what is the function of executor service? So it can execute the task, it will manage the threads, and it will return the results and shut down the pool gracefully. Gracefully means there is no there is no improper termination, like it will terminate the program normally. No abnormal termination will be there. So that is the use of executor service. And how do you create the executor service? So you can see in the line 14th, I have created executors dot new fixed thread pool. So that means new fixed thread pool is one of the full type, and I am creating 3 threads. If I give 3, it will create 3 threads, and I am returning the executor service. What is this executor service? You can see it's an interface. You can see it's an interface executor service. And whenever you call this executor one dot submit method, and you are returning 100. Okay. So whenever you call the submit method, it will return the future object. So I'll explain what is future object and submit later. So first you understand how do we create executor service. Okay. So you will just call executors dot new fixed thread pool of size 3, and you will return the executor service interface. It will return the executor service object. Okay, just remember that. So now we will understand what are the different types of thread pools that are available. Okay. So first I am going to explain about the fixed thread pool. What is the fixed thread pool? So just now I created one thread pool, like in all these cases I created thread pool. What is this thread pool? New fixed thread pool. So that is what I am going to explain here. So how do you create the new fixed thread pool? You just call executors dot new fixed thread pool. So what it will do means, if I give 3, it will create only 3 threads. And if there are 10 tasks, assume there are 10 tasks, So the task 1 will be assigned to thread 1, task 2 will be assigned to thread 2, and task 3 will be assigned to thread 3. And we have only 3 threads. So the remaining task, that is task 4 to task 10, they will be in waiting state. So when the task 1 is completed by thread 1, so then thread 1 will be taking the task 4. So that is how it will reuse the threads. Okay. So that is what I mentioned here. When the thread becomes free, it will picks up the next waiting task. Okay. So and this thread pool is best for APIs, database operations, and backend applications. And how do you create? You can see executors dot new fixed thread pool. Okay. So now let's look at what is the second type of thread pool. The second type of thread pool is a single thread executor. So what is the single thread executor? You can see by the name already suggests that it is a single thread. Okay. How do you create? You can use executors dot new single thread executor. Like for example, I will show it here. Instead of new fixed, new single thread executor, new single, see, you can see executors dot new single thread executor. Like this you can create a new single thread executor. And what it will do means there is only one thread, and this one thread is responsible to execute the task, and it will execute the task one after the other, like after one after the other. And it is useful when the order is important, because it is executing one by one, right? So and real-time examples include file writing, logging, report generation. Logging because we need to know the request flow, how the request is flowing, and where we are facing the errors. That's why here order is important, and we will be using single thread executor. Next we will see one more type of thread pool, that is cached thread pool. Okay. So cached thread pool, how do we create? Means same executors dot new cached thread pool. Okay, this is how we will create the new cached thread pool. And what it will do means it will create the threads as needed, like whenever it is required it will create the threads. And it will reuse the, if there are any idle threads means the threads which are not doing anything, it will reuse the idle threads as well. And this cached thread pool is best for short lived task. Short lived task means tasks which are executing only for a short period of time. And if there are sudden burst of request coming to your application, then cached thread pool is like beneficial. That is where we can use. But the important thing you need to remember is since it will create the threads as needed, you should be very careful. For example, if there are multiple tasks coming at a time, 1,000 tasks coming at a time, then it will create 1,000 threads. So then it will take up all the memory usage and all. So you should be careful with that. And next we will be looking at the scheduled thread pool. Okay. Scheduled thread pool, as the name suggests, it is mainly used for scheduled tasks. And how do you create? Like executor dot executors, the same executors, new scheduled thread pool. Okay. And you need to specify the pool size. And the real-time examples include this one. So this is, there is some sample code snippet. So scheduler dot schedule method you will use, and you will write the task over here, like the print statement executed after 5 seconds, and you are passing the 5 seconds or time minute dot seconds. For example, like there is a task that has to be executed in the morning, every day morning at 6 a.m. So then you can use the scheduled thread pool so that it will execute the task, like sending reminders, cleanup jobs, scheduled reports, everything it will take care of. I think you have understood the types of thread pools that are available. So next we will move on to this one, execute and submit method. What is the difference between execute and submit method? So in the code snippet you can see in the first snippet I am using executor.execute method, and in the second snippet I am using submit method. So let's see. See, and yeah, this is the one. So what is the difference between this? You can see the executor.execute method. This execute method will not return anything, and whenever you use submit method, it will return the value, that is future object it will return. So that is what I mentioned here. So both execute and submit, it will execute a task, but execute method will not return a value, and we will be using execute method for that. And whenever you pass submit, it will execute the task and it will return the value, like it will return the value, that is we call it as future object. Future object means the result we can retrieve in the later stages. So that is what submit method. So you understood the difference between execute and submit. Let's see some of the methods that are there in the executor service. Okay, so one of the method we are going to discuss now is shutdown method. So shutdown means in the laptop we are also doing shutdown, right? The same thing. So after all the tasks are completed, we used to call this shutdown method. So whenever you call this shutdown method, it will stop. What the thread will do means it will stop accepting the new tasks, and if there are any already submitted tasks, it will complete all the submitted tasks and it will then shut down. So for example, you can see after this job is completed, so I will call executor one dot shutdown. That's it. It will shut down the things and it will not accept the new task. So always you should, it is recommended to call shutdown once everything is done. Okay, remember that. And now we will discuss about shutdown now method. Shutdown now means we are immediately we are shutting down the things, shutting down the threads. So that means whenever you call shutdown now, so what happens is if there are any running tasks, it will attempt to stop those running tasks immediately. And also if there are any tasks that are not started, it will return those tasks. But there is no guarantee that the running tasks will be stopped instantly. So just you need to call shutdown now. Yeah, this is the method. And let's look at some other method, await termination. So this is one of the method, that is await termination. After shutdown, you call this executor.await termination. That means whatever the time you have given, so it will wait for that particular amount of time before shutdown, so that all the tasks will be finished. Okay, before the shutdown. So you call this shutdown. After that, you can use the await shutdown. Await long timeout after 10 seconds I'll give, and the unit is time minute dot seconds. It is throwing the interrupted exception, so you need to throw that exception. Okay, so whenever you do await termination, whatever the time period you have given, so it will wait for those number of seconds for all the tasks to be finished. After that it will do graceful termination. And let's look at some real Spring Boot example. uh, so for example, what happens is whenever a user places an order, instead of making the user wait for everything means whenever you place an order, what happens is that the order will get saved, then the email communication has to be sent, then SMS has to be sent, and notification has to be sent to the warehouse. So many tasks are running, right? So if you are waiting for all these tasks to complete and then notify the user that your order is successful, then it will have a very bad experience. So what you can do is whenever the user places the order, there is a main thread. Okay, this main thread is responsible for saving the order and returning the successful message to the user. And in the background, for this background tasks like this, sending this email, sending the SMS, sending the notification to the warehouse, everything will be taken care by executor service. Like the background threads are responsible to do this job, so that the user experience or the responsiveness will be improved and also the performance of the application will be very good. So that is the real Spring Boot example. Now we will look at some of the interview questions. So why we use the executor service instead of creating threads manually? So we can create the threads like thread t is equal to new thread, and you can use t.stat. So why we are using executor service means because creating a threads is an expensive task which involves memory and CPU utilization, and that's why we are using executor service, which which manages the thread pools, and it will reuse the threads through the thread pool, improving the performance and the resource management. That's why we will be using executor service. Reusable, there is a concept, and there is two methods, right? I told you what are execute and submit. So what is the difference between execute and terminate? So both will execute the task, but execute method will not return a value, whereas submit method will return a future object. And the execute method you can use only with runnable, whereas submit method you can use with both runnable and callable. So I'll discuss callable in the next video. And there is two methods, shutdown and shutdown now. So if you call shutdown, it is graceful termination. Graceful termination means it will wait until all the tasks are finished and then shutdown. If you call shutdown now, it is immediate termination. And if you call shutdown, it will complete all the tasks before termination. But if you call shutdown now, like it will interrupt the existing task only. If there are any tasks that are completing, it will interrupt the task, those tasks only. So that is the difference. And there is another interview question, like which thread pool is most commonly used. As I discussed, new fixed thread pool. New fixed thread pool is the most commonly used because it limits the number of threads. In the new fixed thread pool, you can see I can set the number of threads to be created, so that we can have a control on the resource usage, that is memory and CPU. So that's why that is the new fixed thread pool is the most commonly used. So I think I have completed all the concepts related to the executor framework. If you have any questions, please feel to drop it in the comment section, and thank you so much for watching.